Welcome back for part 2 of engine removal from my 1966 Shelby GT350. My name is Walter, and this is the GT350 Garage. Before we get started, I want to bring up something that is very basic, and that is subscribing. According to the statistics on my YouTube channel, about 90% of you are not subscribers. And if you want to know when my future videos drop, what they're about, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It will make sure that you don't miss out on any content that might help you with your own project or restoration as you're proceeding through, especially now that we're going into winter and this is the time of year that we all want to work on our cars. So, let's talk about this video. We're going to remove the headers from the car. I'm going to show you the tools I use, share some of the little tricks that I use to get them in and out easily. And while we're there, we're going to take the clutch equalizer bar or the Z bar out of the way so that we can get the driver's side header out and just basically move through the process of getting this engine a whole lot closer to coming out of the car. So with that, let's get started taking some headers out of the car. Okay, it's time to take the headers out. It helps to have a selection of tools. On these older cars with the original iron heads, you're going to need an 18mm socket. And for that, you'll want a decent 3/8 ratchet. And you're going to want to make sure that you have a wrench that goes on your spark plug socket. Sometimes this just works way better than a ratchet. When it comes time to taking the header bolts out, you're going to want a variety of wrenches just to have. Short, thin wrenches with thin walls around the box end make getting into tighter headers, header bolt clearances a little bit easier. And then a longer curved wrench is going to give you a little more leverage, and it just makes the whole process of removing the header bolts a little bit easier. We're going to start by taking out the spark plugs. And so for that, get your socket on there. And you can see that we don't fit. So go ahead and use your wrenches appropriately and take out all the spark plugs. So start off, use this long wrench to break loose any bolts that you can get it on, and that's going to be the challenge, is getting it on some of these header tubes or past some of these header tubes. Sometimes you can get the wrench on there and then you can't get it off after you get the bolt loose. Switch to box end. Let's try this thin wall. See if I can get it in here. These old headers are a pain in the butt. The new GBAs will be a little bit nicer. They're actually thoughtfully made, so they've got clearance to get the wrenches onto the header bolts. Well, that one was loose. let's get these out. Before I go any further, got to get these header collector bolts loose. Okay, on the number one exhaust port, the inside radius is just tight enough on this particular header tube that this bolt ends up being the last bolt you take out at the front. And I have one easily accessible bolt at the back that's holding up the entire header. So I'm going to take that bolt out and then I'm going to lift the header out. Bolt, and actually there's the front bolt, and this header's going to go out through the bottom. Okay, so this header does not have any markings on it that I can see. Pull the gasket off. You can see this one's been siliconed together a few times to stop the exhaust leaks that it still had. We've got silicone around the ports to try and stop up the exhaust leaks. To be honest with you guys, it didn't really work all that well. This is an older style header, so this is back in the days where they made these with pretty thin flanges. Yeah, there's no marking on this, but these notches that you can see above each exhaust port would make this header work on a 66 Mustang with the factory California air injection system. And chances are that's why this set of headers is on this car. These are definitely headers compatible with a 66. While I'm here, no time like the present to take this ground cable off the back of the head. And while I'm working here, you can see the extended tubes for the heater core that I'm running. So we'll get this ground cable out of the way. Nice and out of the way so that it won't cause any issues pulling the engine. Just tuck it over here behind the brake line. All right, in order to get the clutch linkage out, we've got to pull this clip. And to do that, just grab it with a set of needle nose pliers and give it a tug from the top. So once that's out of there, you can pull this rod from the pedal out of the way. And then to remove your Z-bar, you're going to want to pull the two frame bolts off of the bracket on the frame side. These things, they're kind of wedged in there between the engine and that block, and you can see how much play is in this one. The bushings are shot. So let's see if we can get those bolts out of there. Use a good swivel. The old universal styles suck. Invest in good swivels. You'll thank yourself. You don't necessarily have to buy swivel sockets. Okay, just like the passenger side header, the driver's side header, once you get the clutch Z-bar linkage out of the way, I've got 2 bolts left in here. Let's see. These bolts are pretty easy to remove on this side. They actually dimpled these tubes. So just pick up on the header tube with one finger and twist the bolt out with my thumb and index. Okay, that comes out, and that leaves me with the front. And I can actually get a socket on this front one, so I should make quick work of this. And this header tube will drop out the bottom, just like the passenger side. The luxury of installing headers from the top is not a 65, 66 Mustang trait. And it's wedged in there pretty good. I'm gonna get underneath really quick and see if I can free it. Actually stuck on the head bolt. Got a clutch return spring going through the header tubes, so we got to pull that out of there. That out of the way. And unlike the passenger side where there's a ton of silicone around the header to stop leaks, this side had a paper gasket, and what's left of the paper gasket is still there, and this side was fairly well sealed up. Okay, that's header removal from an early Mustang chassis. It's pretty straightforward. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you and a little bit blunt right here. Don't try and take the engine out with the headers on it. It's a pain in the butt, okay? Literal pain in the butt. Depending on the headers that you have, they can be too wide to get out past the shock towers. And the last thing you want is to have an engine dangling from an engine crane and have to take the headers off mid-air. It's kind of dangerous, and you want to work safely and you don't want to get hurt. So take the headers off before you try and lift the engine, okay? Now, what if you've got cast iron manifolds? Either the old log style off an A code or a C code, or the hypo style off of the K code 289 hypo cars. Well, leave them on. And I say that in all seriousness. Those engines went in with those manifolds on, they can come out with those manifolds on. They don't get in the way, they're not a problem. So take the engine out of the car with them on. Why? Well, real simple. When you get it out of the car, you can take a drift and a hammer. After you've soaked all the bolts, you can use a hammer and that drift to shock the bolts, and it'll break the corrosion and the torque load on the bolts loose just a little bit, and it'll make it so that you can get the bolts out without snapping them off in the head. And if you're going to reuse your cylinder head as part of your rebuild, the last thing you want is to have to drill out header bolts and repair the cylinder head. So that's my advice when it comes to cast iron manifolds. With that, I want to say thank you to everyone who's watching my videos. I appreciate all of the likes. I appreciate the questions. If you have questions, leave a question in the comments or hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. The links are in the description below. You can always ask questions there. And basically, if you want to make sure that you don't miss some of the stuff that I've got coming as I get closer to doing some of the other projects on the car, I'm gonna one more time recommend hit that subscribe button, and you'll start seeing some videos on steering, suspension, brakes, interior work. A bunch of stuff's going to be happening here in the next couple of months, and so that you don't miss out on that, become a subscriber. Anyways, appreciate you all being here, and I hope to see you in the next video.